Mark first saw Anna at a charity gala, an event usually a blur of polite conversations and forced smiles for him. But then, she was there. Standing by an arched window, moonlight catching in her chestnut hair, she seemed to glow. The world around Mark, a symphony of hushed voices and soft jazz, faded into silence. Before her, his life had been a meticulously organized spreadsheet, a successful legal career, a comfortable apartment, predictable friendships. Anna, however, was a supernova, blasting into his ordered existence, threatening to unravel everything he knew. He approached her, feeling clumsy and awkward, a sensation utterly foreign to him. "Beautiful evening, isn't it?" he mumbled, nearly tripping over his own words. Anna turned, her summer skies meeting his with mild curiosity. "Indeed," she replied, her voice a melody, like rustling autumn leaves. The conversation flowed easily. She spoke of her passion for painting, her search for inspiration in travel, and her love for old jazz. Mark, who knew little about art, absorbed every word, like a thirsty sponge. He learned she'd recently returned from Morocco, trying to capture the play of light and shadow on canvas, and that her dream was a long journey through South America. By the end of the evening, he felt he only knew fragments of her, but those fragments were enough to ignite an inferno in his soul, one he knew he couldn't extinguish, even if he tried. The following weeks and months became a relentless pursuit for Mark to embed himself in her life. He delved into her interests with an intensity worthy of a higher calling. He started frequenting art galleries, learning about different artistic movements, and devouring biographies of the artists Anna mentioned. He became a regular at a small jazz club she sometimes visited after work. He memorized every minute detail of her stories, her preference for almond milk in her coffee, her favorite color a deep indigo, her fear of spiders, and her constant lament about never having enough time to read. He invited her to dinners at the city's finest restaurants, secured tickets to theater premieres she longed to see. He presented her with rare, collector's editions of art books she'd once casually mentioned. One time, learning that Anna was searching for a specific shade of pale lilac roses for a painting, a rare variety, he spent an entire day scouring the city, finally finding them at a tiny flower shop on the other side of town, specifically ordered from a florist who knew all her preferences. Mark saw Anna's smiles, her appreciation for his attention, but in her eyes, in her smile, he never saw the reciprocal feeling, that spark he so desperately yearned for. She was grateful, but not in love. On a warm summer evening, after dinner at their favorite Italian restaurant, Mark decided to lay it all on the line. They walked along the river embankment, stars reflecting in the dark water, the air thick with the scent of night-blooming flowers. He stopped, took her hands in his. They were cool and trembled slightly, and, looking directly into her eyes, he uttered the words that had been waiting for so long. "Anna, I've fallen madly in love with you. You've changed my world. I want to be with you. Always." Anna slowly pulled her hands away. Her smile, which always illuminated her face, faded. Mark felt his heart clench, sensing something unbearable. "Mark, you're an incredible person, and I appreciate everything you do for me, all your attention," she began, her voice soft but with a hint of weariness. "But I can't return your feelings. I see you only as a very good friend. Our friendship is very, very dear to me, and I don't want to lose it." Her words were like an icy deluge. He felt the ground crumble beneath his feet. Mark couldn't believe that all his efforts, all his love, had been insufficient. He tried to argue, to convince her that she simply hadn't realized the depth of his feelings, that he just needed to give her more time. He refused to give up. He couldn't. His attempts became even more desperate, bordering on obsession. He started sending her flowers to her studio almost every day, leaving long, heartfelt notes under her door, pouring out his soul, writing poems he composed for her. He learned her schedule down to the minute, knew when she drank coffee, when she worked, when she met friends. If she mentioned a book she wanted to read, Mark would find it and bring it to her the next day. When she casually mentioned wanting to visit a private art exhibition, Mark, using all his connections, secured tickets. One time, learning that Anna dreamed of a solo exhibition, was hesitant. He secretly arranged it with the owner of a small but prestigious gallery. He organized everything himself, from booking the space to printing invitations. Anna was stunned and moved to tears when he led her into the room where her paintings hung. "Mark, this is unbelievable," she whispered. But even then, in her eyes, there wasn't the fire he so desperately craved. There was only gratitude, mixed with a hint of bewilderment. His friends, especially Oleg, his longtime university buddy, began to openly express their concern. "Mark, you look like a ghost," Oleg said one evening, when Mark again declined a football game to wait for Anna outside her studio. "You're burning yourself out. Can't you see she doesn't want this? You're just making her uncomfortable and only hurting yourself more." But Mark didn't listen. He was convinced that his love was a test, and he had to endure it to the end. He believed that Anna simply hadn't realized her happiness, and that he had to help her see it. Over time, Anna began to distance herself even more. Her replies to his messages became shorter, their meetings rarer, her smiles more forced. Mark felt it, but instead of retreating, he only intensified his efforts. He began writing her long, desperate letters, describing his future with her, his dreams, his hopes. He begged her to give him a chance, pleaded that no one could love her the way he did. The climax arrived on a rainy autumn evening. Mark, once again, arrived at her house unannounced, hoping to persuade her to go with him to a new gallery opening. Anna opened the door, her face pale and tired. Her patience, it seemed, had finally run out. "Mark," she said, her voice trembling but firm, "please, stop. You're hurting me. Your attention is suffocating me. I've told you 100 times I don't love you, and that will never change. The more you try, the harder it is for me to be around you." These words sounded like a final, irrevocable verdict. Mark felt the world around him crumble into shards. He tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He saw the pain in her eyes, and that, it seemed, was even worse than his own. He realized that his love, which had seemed so pure, so selfless, had become a burden for Anna, a heavy weight she wanted to shed. He understood that in his selfish quest to win her over, he had caused her suffering. He turned and left. All night, Mark wandered through the deserted streets in the pouring rain. Each drop, it seemed, washed away a part of himself. He thought of all his attempts, all his efforts, all the emotions he'd poured out. And by dawn, when the first rays of sun broke through the clouds, he finally understood that Oleg had been right. Love cannot be conquered or begged for. It either arrives like a miracle, or it doesn't. And in this case, it didn't. Months passed, stretching into what felt like an eternity. Mark buried himself in work, trying to dull the ache and emptiness that had formed inside him. He stopped calling Anna, stopped seeking her out. Slowly, the wound began to heal, leaving only a faint scar. He lost weight, his gaze became more distant, but at the same time, a new depth appeared in his eyes. One day, almost a year later, he saw Anna by chance in a small coffee shop. She was sitting at a table by the window with another man. He was tall, with disheveled hair, and they were laughing loudly at something, looking at each other with genuine affection. Mark felt a pang of jealousy, but it was weak, almost imperceptible, like an echo of old pain. He simply walked past, not drawing her attention, not wanting to disturb her world. And at that moment, looking at her happy face, he realized he was free. Free from that obsessive, unrequited love that had held him captive for so long. He had lost Anna, but in the process of that painful liberation, he had gained something far more valuable, himself. He understood that his life didn't end with her, and that true love doesn't demand such sacrifices and such pain.